2 series in a row, the Giants have won the first game and failed to win either of the next 2. So 2 brutal series losses in a row for a team that's struggling to get to 500. It's just not good enough.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're watching the show. This episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And coming up on today's show, yes, we are going to get into the Giants losing consecutive series in which they won the first game of the series. And so that's just really a tough pill to swallow for a team that's in the Giants' position, which is to say, they are under 500, and really, if they could have won just one of each of those, like if they could have won just 2 of those 4 games, right? Just played 500 in those 4 games that were the final 2 games of each of the last 2 series. You get what I'm saying? Like they win the first game in Cleveland. If you just win one of the next 2, they win that first game against Toronto, if you just win one of the next 2, you'd have 2 more wins, and your record would be 47-47. So you'd be just in a significantly better position. Like every game counts at the end of the year, and when you just are doing this on a consistent basis, and they have not been able to get any kind of, like, even just getting to 500 has been tough for the Giants. And when they get close, they have these situations where they fall back down and then they climb back up and they're right there and then they fall back down. And so it's just been a struggle. And really, I mean, if we break down how it happened, they only scored less than 4 runs one time in those 4 losses. So in the losses, they scored 4 runs, 6 runs, and 3 yesterday. So the issue continues to be more so just that they're allowing too many runs. So in those losses, they allowed 5, 10, and 5. So not one time did they allow fewer than 5 runs. And that's tough because it means you got to score at least 6, not 5. Like you have to score at least 6 runs to win. And asking your team to score 6 runs, I mean, on occasion, and in the one time that they did score 6, they would have won any of the other games that they lost, but they allowed 10 in that game. And so it's just an unfortunate time for that to have happened, given that they were playing well too. They had won series against the Braves on the road. They won their series against the Dodgers at home. They took 3 out of 4 from the Cubs. And that was following up a 5-game losing streak after getting the first win on their road trip through Chicago and St. Louis. That included that stop in Alabama for the Rickwood Field game. So that's just kind of the last, basically since the start of that road trip, it kind of is a good illustration of how the season has gone for the Giants. Like a dramatic comeback win against the Cubs. Remember Thairo Estrada hitting that big 3-run homer in the 9th. The Giants win 7-6, and then they lose 5 straight. And it's like, wow, you start the series or the road trip off with a huge, seemingly momentum building win, and then you follow it up with 5 straight losses. So then you're reeling, but then you come home and you win 3 out of 4 against the Cubs, and then you win a series at home against the Dodgers. And then you go and win a series against the Braves. And so suddenly you're feeling great. And then you win that first game against Cleveland, but then you lose the next two. You win this first game against Toronto in dramatic fashion. They really could have been swept by the Blue Jays because we looked at the win probability. It was like 10% with 2 outs, runner on first, down by a run against the Blue Jays in their win. And so if they hadn't pulled that one out, they easily could have been swept in the series. But what's kind of crazy, if you look at it individually, is the game that really felt like they should have won was the middle game with Logan Webb on the mound and a 2-0 lead in the 5th inning. And it just that just feels like a win. I mean, Logan Webb typically allows 2 runs in 7 innings, and you just kind of felt like that was, 4 shutout innings. He's kind of cruising along, but then all of a sudden the wheels fell off for him, which is just so uncharacteristic. And Webb in the outing ended up going only 5, allowed 7 earned runs, allowed a big 3-run homer. 2 days in a row, Ernie Clement hit huge 3-run homers. So just kind of weird stuff in this series by the Blue Jays and by some good Giants pitchers. I mean, Logan Webb got hit by Ernie Clement there and Ryan Walker. Those have been arguably the 2 best pitchers on the Giants. And Ernie Clement got them both for 3-run homers. And nobody allows fewer homers than Logan Webb. I was looking at this the other day when I was just trying to emphasize Webb's all-star candidacy and resume, that since 2021, nobody has a lower home runs per 9 than no qualified pitcher has a lower home runs per 9 than Logan Webb. And even with the home run he allowed the other day, he's at 0.61 since 2021 home runs per 9 innings, and that is the lowest in the major leagues by 0.05 homers. And then even this year, if we look at 2024, he's probably going to be lowest again because he was allowing, well, he's not lowest. He's 3rd lowest at 0.43. He was going into the game at 0.25 or something. So 1 home run every 36 innings, he's just allowing very, very few home runs. And so that was a big blow. But then all of a sudden, I mean, he was just getting hit hard left and right after that. So he kind of fell out of whack and pitches weren't moving like they normally do, and the wheels just kind of fell off. And so then they ended up losing and they ended up scoring 6 runs, and it's a Logan Webb start. So if you had told me prior to the game the Giants are going to score 6 runs in this Logan Webb start, I would tell you with fairly high confidence that they're going to win the game. But if you had told me Logan Webb was going to be on the mound and the Blue Jays were going to end up with 10 runs. I mean, I don't know when the last time a team scored 10 or more runs in a game that was started by Logan Webb. It's just that unusual. And so that was the one where you really felt like they were going to pull it off and at least win the series and then have a chance to go for a sweep. But then when you lose that one, and then in the finale, you've got Jordan Hicks on the mound against Kevin Gausman. I mean, Kevin Gausman is not having the same typical Kevin Gausman year that he's had the last several, but at the same time, he has the potential to go out and pitch really well every time, as we've seen when he was in a Giants uniform. And then Jordan Hicks has really tailed off here, and it was more of the same in the finale. And so all of a sudden, you're getting some clarity. A lot of people asking, what are they going to do when all these guys come back in the starting rotation? Well, it's looking more and more like Jordan Hicks could use a break as a starting pitcher because he seems to be leaking oil. So coming up in just a minute, we're going to get into the finale of the series and how Jordan Hicks is seemingly leaking oil. What did that outing look like? What are the indicators of leaking oil for him, and what are they going to do moving forward with him? So we'll get into all of that in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Stitch Fix. Now, Stitch Fix is perfect for me because I hate buying clothes. I hate going to the store. it's just not something I want to do on my own. And what Stitch Fix allows you to do is you get a stylist who understands your style, your size, and your budget, and they do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Now, I just give my stylist my size, my style, my budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required, and they just send 5 just for me pieces plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works and send back the rest. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Now's the best time to get started at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $100 off. That's $25 off your first 4 fixes for a limited time only. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $100 off. stitchfix.com/MLB must redeem within 7 days of sign up. Offer does not include kids fixes. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Giants, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, like I do, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, unfortunately not me, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And be sure to mention Locked On Giants at checkout, and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. All right, as promised, we were going to get into Jordan Hicks leaking oil in a major way and how it kind of cost the Giants a game here, and it has ramifications for the rest of the season for the Giants, no doubt. Because, I mean, I don't know about the rest of the season necessarily, but for a while, because Jordan Hicks is, I mean, he was so good to start the season. Like, he was clearly one of their most reliable starters, and now he's just suddenly not, and we're going to look at the numbers. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, actually tomorrow on Saturday, we're going to be breaking down this first game against the Twins. Tonight, it is Kyle Harrison on the mound for the Giants against Joe Ryan, the Bay Area native, good pitcher, career ERA of 3.87, this year 3.29. So it's going to be tough. The Twins are a good team, and that's part of why these last 2 series losses have been so difficult to watch. And this is a big series going into the All-Star break. You can't, if you lose the series, you get swept or something like that, you're kind of in a bad way record-wise. And so the Giants need to play well, but they're playing a good team. So if you want to prove you're a good team, you got to beat good teams. And they were doing that, and they've got to try to do it again. And they're at home, and we'll see. So also, are you watching ESPN or Fox Sports on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And so getting into Jordan Hicks, he is certainly seeming to be leaking oil, and he himself talked about how he was leaking oil. So this is from a Maria Guardado article from yesterday. He allowed 8 hits, including 2 homers, which, he's usually good at preventing homers, and a walk, and he had a dip in velocity. His average fastball was only 92.2, down from a season average of 94.5. And he recorded only one strikeout in the 88 pitch outing. And he said this after the game, quote, "I'm getting to that point where I'm starting to feel it a little bit. The first half of the first half felt really good. So the first quarter of the season felt really good. The body felt great. The second half of the first half, it's kind of just been a slow decline overall. I don't know how to say this without making it sound like an excuse. I just haven't really had it. When I reach back, I'm getting 94, 95 instead of 97, 98, talking about velocity, of course. He said, I feel healthy. That's not the thing I'm worried about. It's just more about overall fatigue. I wake up, I'm fine. I get to the start of the game, I feel great. It's just like that toll on the body as the third inning kind of creeps around right now." So as Guardado says in the article, he opened the season 4-1 with a 2.33 ERA over his first 11 starts. Effectiveness has waned as he's continued the biggest workload of his career. Over his past 8 outings, he's 0-5 with a 6.08 ERA. And that's, I think, dating back to May 19th. 0-5. I mean, I don't really care about wins and losses for pitchers because they can be misleading. But a 6.08 ERA over his last 8 outings. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The Giants' pitching has just not been good enough. And so Guardado says the Giants hope the All-Star break will give Hicks at least another week off and help refresh him into the second half, but there's a good chance he'll end up shifting to the bullpen once Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb return from the injured list. And Bob Melvin said, once we get there, we'll probably have an idea. But as of right now, we know he's going to have to start until then, until Ray and Cobb are back. Melvin continued, we signed him as a starter. Obviously, we have to look at the innings at some point in time, but give him credit. He takes the ball every 5th day and goes out there for us and tries to give as much as he can. And Hicks says a lot of conversations are coming in the next week or so. We'll see how everything shakes out. So, looking to see if there are any more pertinent quotes. Melvin, about the upcoming series, says we have 3 key games. We get right to the 500 mark and we lose a couple games. We need to have a good series to go away and have a good feeling about being that much closer to 500. It's important. There are some teams that are starting to separate a little bit from the 500 mark. We can't fall too far behind. So I'll echo that point. I agree with him 100% later. But the point here about Hicks, I mean, it sounds to me like it seems obvious that, yeah, they signed him to be a starter, but you can't live with that kind of performance, especially when he has so much experience as a reliever. Like, you don't have to just, burn the guy into the ground in year one of a 4-year guaranteed contract, right? Like, you got, yes, he may feel healthy, and really overall, I should say, the ERA is just 3.79 on the season. So it's still been an overall successful experiment across 19 starts for Hicks. And when I say experiment, I mean just, new venture for him. But I mean, yeah, the decline, and he's pitched 95 innings. So even if he pitches out of the bullpen, he's consistently been around, when he's pitched out of the bullpen in full seasons, like 65 or so innings. So if he threw another 30 innings and they were all out of the bullpen or something, he would still end up with close to 130 innings, which I think, what do we expect? Him to go out there and throw almost 200 innings in his first season as a starter, when his previous career high was his rookie season when he threw 77 2/3. And since then, his next closest was last year at 65 2/3. And he's already at 95, and we've got almost half the season left to play. So I think it's looking obvious that at the very least he could use a break by being used out of the bullpen. And it sounds like he's acknowledging that. I mean, he's basically acknowledging that he just doesn't feel like he has it in him. Like, he's reaching back and he's not getting the velocity. This is a guy who last year on his fastball averaged 100.3 miles an hour. In fact, he's averaged 100 miles an hour or more every year of his career until this year. And that's to be expected this year. That actually is not, so that's the four-seamer, which he doesn't throw a lot. I'm looking, last year he threw it 11% of the time, but otherwise he's only thrown it prior to this year like 1.5% of the time as the max. So he does throw more of a sinker. That's his pitch. And last year the sinker averaged 100.1, and the previous years 99, 99, 101, 100.5, and this year it's at 94.4. So that's to be expected. But at the same time, now if like we're seeing, I saw some in the 80s yesterday, and so that's just, it's not a surprise that he's getting hit as the velocity diminishes. And so with Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray coming back, and then you've got Logan Webb, who can certainly handle this kind of workload, and you've got Kyle Harrison, who missed some time, which maybe is somewhat of a blessing because he kind of got his innings cut short a little bit because of the ankle thing. Blake Snell can certainly handle a starter's workload, and he's missed a lot of time, so his arm should be fresh. So if you've got Webb and you've got Snell, Robbie Ray, Alex Cobb, Kyle Harrison, Hayden Birdsong, you can certainly afford to move Jordan Hicks into the bullpen for some period of time. And so, this was a rough outing for Hicks. He, like I already went over the line score or the box score, 4 1/3, 5 earned runs. What stands out is 1 strikeout, 2 homers, 8 hits, but just getting 1 K. I mean, it's just not very good. And Kevin Gausman was good, and Elliot Ramos hit another homer. That's a positive. But overall, I think these things have a way of working themselves out. Like the questions about who goes out of the rotation once these guys come back, it becomes obvious whether by injury or by performance. And right now, by performance and just the indicators we're seeing as we watch Jordan Hicks pitch, it's pretty clearly right now Jordan Hicks to the bullpen seems like the way that this thing is going to go. But we'll see. Maybe he comes out of the All-Star break a little bit fresher. And we don't know exactly when Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb are going to be able to come back. So maybe Hicks gets like one more start, and if it's a great one, they keep him in there. And if it's another rough one, then maybe the move is obvious. So we'll see. And coming up in just a minute, I do want to preview this big series against the Twins. Like Bob Melvin said, want to echo those sentiments and preview what's to come. And remember, we'll have an episode for you tomorrow as well, because we did miss Thursday, and I do apologize for that. So that's all coming up in just a minute. And before we get into it, this episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com, with summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games. It's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. And yes, we're talking about your rivals' cities with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival's city. Giants do have an upcoming trip to Los Angeles, July 22nd through 25th, a 4-game road trip. I've been down to LA multiple times for games and have always had a good time. And Booking.com, like I said, with all those different options for the places you can stay, you might just find that it's the perfect stay. If you stay near the stadium, there's some beautiful places to stay. And there's also, with baseball, so much travel and so many opportunities to visit any city. So the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. This episode is also brought to you in part by Game Time. I love going to MLB games during the summertime. I've already been. It wasn't summertime, freezing in Boston and Denver earlier, so summertime is a little better, and I'm looking forward to traveling to a few more cities this summer. And the place to go for me to get tickets is Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. My favorite thing is the lowest price guarantee, which means that if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, as promised, we're gonna preview this big series, why it's big, and what the pitching matchups are. And it's against the Twins, who are having a nice year. Carlos Correa going to be in town. There's a lot of intrigue here. It's the final series before the All-Star break, and I agree with Bob Melvin 100%. It's important for the Giants to have a good series because there are some teams separating themselves, and you don't want to fall too far behind. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, if you're dedicated, which I hope you are. I'm really sorry I just had things scheduled yesterday. It was unavoidable and was not able to get an episode out. But we're going to make it up for you on Saturday, tomorrow, talking about this game one of what I'm calling a pretty critical series here against the 53-40 Twins. Joe Ryan against Kyle Harrison. So please be sure to check it out. And a reminder that after the game, like tonight, you can catch Postcast with Eric Engel on Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube. So subscribe to that channel, Locked On Sports San Francisco. Hit the notification bell to be notified when he goes live after the game, like right after the game. And that's like all season long for almost every game. And then that feed gets put on the like normal non-YouTube Locked On Giants podcast feed. It's always going to say Postcast in the title. So just a heads up about that. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So the Minnesota Twins are coming into town, and they boast the sixth best Fangraphs wins above replacement in all of baseball. Their team weighted runs created plus is 114, which is the fourth best in baseball. So the Twins, like, sneakily are one of the better teams around, and that's their position player mix. And I'm going to look at their pitching in a second, but I know they've got some good starting pitching. So leading the way for them is Carlos Correa having a huge year. So that's the one thing I'll say here about Carlos Correa is I feel like he's going to get booed, but there's no reason he should get booed. He agreed to sign here, so I really hope that the fans give him a round of applause. I feel like that would be a nice gesture by the fans, kind of cheering for a player who did want to come here. And yeah, I guess it was a little weird how it all went down after that, after how he kind of bounced to the Mets real quick, even though the Giants apparently indicated that they were interested in discussing a reworked deal. He just kind of quickly pivoted to the Mets, who found the same issue. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, like, Carlos Correa is having a big year. A lot of players on the Twins having a big year, and they're good. And they've got some young talent, Jose Miranda, Royce Lewis, recently called up, I think Matt Wallner is a threat here, and Brooks Lee. They've got a lot of young talent and some veteran talent like Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton. Very right-handed as I look at that. I guess you've got like Max Kepler mixed in there. And then, actually I'm kind of not entirely correct on that. Brooks Lee is a switch hitter. They've got Carlos Santana, switch hitter, Kepler, Trevor Larnach, and then Matt Wallner also left-handed. So nice mix. I like the Twins roster. I think it's kind of underrated. And on the pitching side, you got some tough cookies you're going to face here with, especially I think their starting pitching, but their bullpen is good too. So when we look at overall Fangraphs wins above replacement, their pitching, the Twins ranks 10th. Their ERA is worse than their fielding independent pitching, which is what Fangraphs WAR is based on. So they're actually 19th in ERA. So that's a little bit of a perhaps weakness. The Giants continue to be 25th in ERA at 4.49, whereas their fielding independent pitching is significantly lower, like more than half a run lower. Giants 25th in ERA, and in fielding independent pitching, they're 13th. And so that's a huge gap there. And you would hope that that kind of turns around and that those numbers become more aligned. But as of yet, it just hasn't happened. So for the Twins, if we look at, I don't know, starting pitching, I'm imagining they're going to be near the best, but where do we find? I can't find them as I look at this. I just cannot find them. They're definitely there, but the 22nd, there we go. They've got a 4.48 ERA, so maybe I'm tripping a little bit about their starting pitching. Joe Ryan comes in at 3.29. Simeon Woods Richardson, who I believe is going in game 2, 3.48. And then Chris Paddock going in the third game at 5.18. And so Pablo Lopez, we're not going to see him. I guess we don't have to worry about the guys that they're not going to face. But you're facing their two best starters, and then after that, Chris Paddock not. So you're kind of set up for potentially a win in the finale if you can win one of the first two games, Joe Ryan against Kyle Harrison, and then Hayden Birdsong against Simeon Woods Richardson, neither of which will be easy. But then in the finale, you've got Blake Snell, they've got Chris Paddock. You should have the advantage in that game, but you never know how baseball is going to work out. We've learned that a long, long time ago. So anyway, I completely agree with Bob Melvin. It's important that they finish off, ideally with a series win and don't fall too far behind. Right now, just to cap it off, they're 4 games under 500, 3 games back in the wild card standings. Could be worse. I mean, 3 games back only when you're 4 games under 500, but there are now 4 teams above 500 who are not in first place in their divisions. And so if you start slipping further behind and a few teams start separating themselves, then you're in trouble. But important series, and we'll break down game 1 tomorrow. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, like I said, breaking down game 1 tomorrow. Locked On also has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.